Hey everybody, welcome to DBS Films Podcast. My name is Kellen. With me as always is my brother Brendan. Together we make movies with DBS Films. In today's episode, we're going to go day by day breakdown the last 4 days of our shoot on the newest feature that we made. It is our 12th horror feature. And we're excited to basically give you guys an inside look at the production schedule. This is part 2, so if you've listened to the first part or you haven't yet, be sure to go ahead, take a listen to that. Also, be sure to take a look at our Discord channel online because we make movies for our fans with our fans. We had over 20 people that we met through the Discord and through our channels in this feature, working on it in some way. So if you ever want to be part of a movie or get just more inside access to DBS Studios, feel free to go ahead and give that a join. So, where we're at right now, we're really kind of getting over the hump. I mean, the last day that we just had, it was a very intense scene. It was the Nelson scene. We were talking about how there's a lot of emotion being poured out there, and we actually made a good call to basically say, okay, we can go ahead and move some things to the next day. But this is really the meat and the potatoes of the production. The 2 days right here. The whole goal is to basically get these things done and then give ourselves enough days if we needed to pick things up. So before we hop into day 4 through 8 or day 5 through 8, do you want to kind of talk about the scheduling process and how, we warm up with some things, we do the intro, then we just tackle the biggest scenes. And I think it's something we learned from our past productions. And I think it's an indie film, like pitfall that happens all the time. You try and save the harder stuff for last or the climax for last when really what you want to do is just hop right into it and, attack these scenes head on.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we learned. The first 8 movies that we did, just human nature is to just save the stuff that you don't know how to actually do it, or you're uncomfortable with it, or it's causing you anxiety, or it's just very difficult. You just save that stuff for the end, and that just causes numerous problems. And by the end of a shoot, I'm tired, the actors are tired, the crew's tired. And to try and do some very long extended scenes is just very difficult. So I think we kind of made the transition with Girl in Cabin 13. We tried to really focus on scheduling and making sure that the harder stuff was done first. Obviously you want to have like a day to warm up, but then after that, you should really be day 2, 3, and 4 should be stacking your really heavy scenes. Your intro scene should be in there as well. It should have its own dedicated day if possible, because intros are so crucial to any kind of film because you really want to hook your audience. So I think we made that, the decision to make those changes in scheduling when I had some time to look at, the production from a top-down view. We made these changes, and I think this one probably did it the best. I think that this schedule is by far our easiest one because we had a nice easy day. We had 3 really heavy days. And then, once you hit that top of the mountain and get all that stuff done, you kind of relax a little bit. There's momentum, the actors they could feel that momentum as well. And it's just kind of like walking down the hill at this point where it's just, hey, do we have any pickups that we can do? Do we have any scenes that we can add? And there's nothing too crazy. So yes, you can't like take your foot off the gas, but it's just a little bit easier knowing that, all the hard stuff is done. So it's just a more relaxed set. And I had purposely left about 5 or 6 pages of this script, just a little bit short because I wanted to make sure this movie moved as quickly as possible. I wanted to have as much action all the way through. I think one thing that a lot of found footage movies suffer from is nothing really happens for about an hour and 10 minutes, and then they kind of cram, everything into the climax for the last 10 minutes. And I really wanted to not only tell a really good story, but I wanted to make sure it was really well paced. So I really cut a lot of the fluff out of this movie with the intent of sitting down, with the last 2 days to add in little scenes. And we did that. We added about 2 or 3 little scenes in there that just gave the movie like a second to breathe and just develop the characters a little bit. I know Andrew and Alexa had a really nice scene at the end of the movie just to kind of develop their characters. We had some stuff with Dylan and Andrew in there. And I think we added one more other little scene just to give the movie a little bit more breath. And that was intentional. But if we didn't schedule it properly, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that. Those scenes probably would have been cut, and we would have had a product that was probably missing 5 or 6 minutes. and was probably paced incorrectly. So I think scheduling honestly is probably the most beneficial thing you could possibly do. Having a solid schedule, sets yourself up for success. And I think a lot of indie filmmakers just struggle to really get their scheduling down, which is why you end up cutting scenes or you're rushing scenes. And usually those scenes are the intro and climax, which unfortunately are the most important scenes in your movie.
Yeah, it's something that we see time and time again. And then, again, they're the most important part of your movie. And before you know it, you're, essentially cutting them or doing things to just make it work. And that's just going to make your entire feature suffer. So I think the next thing I want to talk about before we hop right into basically what happened starting with day 5 is I think this was the part where we were starting to get a little uneasy because of how smoothly everything was going. And it was a fun little joke that we had, like we're starting to say it more and more because again, we just always want to be overly pessimistic. Something terrible is about to happen, something's going to derail this. But as you make your way through the shoots and you just start getting more and more of the content, and you start seeing how good it was specifically for this one, you start to lighten up in the sense of, okay, we're close there. But I just want to mention to filmmakers, you always have to be on edge. You cannot celebrate your victory. So do you want to kind of talk about how it was a weird feeling? Because usually at this point, we're already making backup plans. We're already pushing things. We're already trying to fight for time. So you just want to talk about how you were feeling going into this day after we caught, a really, really productive day of filming.
Yeah, and I think it's also a mistake. I remember doing it when I first started, making these films, is that you do a scene that turns out really well, or it turns out, it's a very hard scene that you got done. And, there's momentum. The morale's high on set. Everyone's like having a good time, partying, you just got this crazy scene done. And you really can't let your foot off the gas, because we've had this before where we've done a really cool scene, everything worked out perfectly, and we kind of relaxed a little bit, and that backed up the next scene or the scene following that. You have to kind of really be pushing this thing all the way through until the last scene where you can actually, relax. And my job, no matter how good of a scene, was done, or how big of a scene we completed, I'm always pushing to just get this thing done. I want to get this thing done as fast as possible with the best product I possibly can. And, as a director, as the producer on these projects, you have to be pushing. You are the one pushing this project forward. You are the person controlling momentum, and everyone on your team, the actor, to no fault of their own, but they're going to try and like take breaks and go slow and relax and, go at a very casual pace. And you really have to be on them. You have to be pushing them. You have to make sure they're on time when, you're doing your call times. And when you're saying, like, I'm saying, look, at 1 o'clock, we're starting, this camera's rolling, you better be ready to go. And, you have to make sure that they're ready to go. Because if you kind of give them just a little bit of rope, that one's going to turn to 1:30, which is going to turn to 2, and then all of a sudden you lost a whole day. So, I was comfortable with this movie. I was super paranoid that we were missing things. I remember going through with Dylan a lot, just making sure we had all the scenes, because I was like, this is almost too easy, and I thought we were just missing something. But that wasn't the case, and we kept the momentum all the way through, really up until the last day, which highlights the point that Kel just made. You never know what's going to happen. We had a very simple scene that should have took 30 minutes, ended up taking 3 hours. So, you never know what's going to happen. Something could break on the camera, or a little problem can turn into a huge problem. So you are not done with the movie. You should never take your foot off the gas until you finally get that last scene, and you can wrap the entire crew.
Completely agree. I mean, that's the process of it. It's always this game that you're playing, keeping the momentum going. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to hop into day 5. Now, day 5, like we were mentioning, is kind of the second half of the big push that we have. A lot of this was a heavy special effects. We had a throat slit effect. We had an eye rip effect. We had all of these things, and it's very, very hectic in the sense of getting all that together. First thing I want to mention is we did have basically a substitution in roles. So we had someone who was playing our distressed woman, or just, I'm not sure what her name was actually now that I think about it, but in The Mirror plays a super important role where she has to basically go and do a special effect. It is a throat slit. And I mean, this is a critical moment. I was actually, when I was watching the movie again, this is the moment that to me signifies shit's getting real. Just because before that, yeah, you do have the intro, but like the intros really drag stuff. There's some bloody hands or whatnot. This scene, I think, just kicks the door wide open to, oh, okay, this is the type of, grittiness that we're going for. So it's a super huge critical scene. And I just want to shout out Alessia for stepping up. She was originally one of our interviewers. And again, we had an issue with one of our casts, and that comes up. You know what I mean? That's just going to happen. That's life. There's no fault of their own. It's just something that happens. And it's one of the processes with managing a shoot. You have to be ready for these types of things. But I think this also highlights the benefit of having our Discord and having our community, because I basically reached out. I sent her a text. I was like, would you be able to do this? This is last minute. And this was less than 24 hours. She said, 100%, I'm good to go. Let's get this taken care of. So that was a massive, massive thanks to us. But really, the night kind of started off with us getting a lot of the Steven and Georgie, are making it. We had to do the Bo meets his maker, which I believe we pushed to the end. So we kind of basically said, hey, let's look at getting as much of the people wrapped as quick as we possibly can. So we did a little bit of flexibility of what we were shooting, and we basically said, let's go ahead and prioritize the special effects scenes ASAP. So you kind of want to, talk about how expect shifts like this, the benefit of having someone like Alessia stepping up to it, and then also, special effects are big ones.
Yeah, so going into this, it was a big night, but I don't think it was as big as the other nights, just because we've done this stuff before. We've done throat slits that you've seen in Murder House. We did the eye rip out as a pickup for the Shapeshifter movie. So I was comfortable with both of these. But I mean, like, this is what I'm talking about with pre-production. If you haven't done it before, then, you're going to be in trouble if you're showing up on set being like, hey, like, we need to get this done, because part of the process with special effects is it takes time to set up and get the makeup and everything done. So you have to know how much time that is going to take. And, that's where we kind of flip things around, because you always want to wrap actors. Anytime you can wrap an actor is a huge momentum boost. And we kind of move things around just so we could wrap people and then shoot some other stuff while the special effects makeup was being applied to another actor, which gave us more flexibility. But as far as like, Alicia stepping up for this, I mean, it's absolutely huge. And I when I got the text that the other actor dropped out, I never felt nervous or I never felt upset. It is what it is. And the only thing that could change is just, how my reaction to that news. So immediately I texted Kel and said, hey, can we get someone out here? And then my brain just started like brainstorming, like, all right, well, if we can't get someone out here, I could always pick this up. It's a one-person job. I'd have to get Tatum back out for special effects, but it's not the end of the world. I could totally do it. I'd rather just get everything done because, I'm paying Tatum to, work on other people's special effects as well. She's being paid a day rate. But, for her to come in and just get this done, so it saved me a good amount of money. And it's always nice to not have any pickups. And she came in and, in my head, I was like, all right, all she has to do is go up here and get this throat slit. That's it. Like, she basically just be a body. We don't need like the best performance, because it's through like a VHS camcorder. I'm going to make it gritty. You're going to have the reactions of the crew of Georgie and Andrew and Dylan watching this thing. So it's not like super big. And then she started to like perform, and I was like, oh man, this is like one of the crucial scenes in this movie where I was like, all right, we just need something that's baseline, like it's just not bad. And she took it and made it absolutely phenomenal. She did such a good job. I was getting like the hair standing up on my neck when she was like saying this kind of stuff, because she was doing such a good job. I never knew, like, when we had done the pre-production with an interviewer, so she wasn't supposed to be doing this stuff. And she just did a phenomenal job. Watching her walk up to that mirror just kept getting better and better and better. And I feel absolutely horrible because she was covered in blood and she was shaking. She was uncontrollably shaking. But, the director and me was like, hey, like, it looks like she's struggling with like nerves and anxiety and anger, which is like what we wanted from the scene. It looked really realistic and gritty because the person's essentially slitting their throat, and having her hands shake uncontrollably because she's cold just kind of added to the scene. So we gave her a DBS hoodie, try to keep her as warm as possible, but I do think that kind of added to the grittiness of the scene. Her acting was absolutely phenomenal, and I think once again this is an example of a scene that if it was just okay, if it was just all right, we would have been completely fine. And I think the actors and the situation and her being able to step up her performance just took this scene from okay to something that's going to be really, really impactful. So I'm super excited about that. I can't praise her enough. She came in, saved the day, saved me money, and not only did that, just gave an absolutely phenomenal performance. But once again, I wasn't worried when, as long as we have the Discord behind us, you guys are ride or die DBS, and I know that no matter what happens, you got our back.
Yeah, and it's something where I can't, there's a lot that goes into acting. And I think a lot of people, what they think is just, what the performance is, but they don't understand that it's the consistency, being able to perform, being able to perform under those conditions. Like, again, it was very cold for Florida. Like it was a cold. Everyone was basically bundled up. And I've had that blood on you. It is very cold. So to be out there, you do a take, you're freezing, you have to go ahead and do another take again. Well, as you mentioned, it does add to the elements. There's not saying that if we were working with other actors that someone might just be like, this is too cold. Like, no, or just phone in the performance or whatever. And I think that's something that happens a lot with indie productions. And I don't blame the actors or actresses that do that, because there's usually a lot of different variables that go into it, and we're asking a lot. So it's being able to step up under those conditions and give such a performance that was really, really amazing. And like you said, it took what could have been a filler scene to, I think, what is going to be the kickoff of, oh, wow, this movie is going. The production value, all of that stuff is going to look so good. She did an absolutely amazing job in it. And again, it's just a reason why we are so thankful for this DBS Discord and the people we were working with, because they're all so passionate about it. Speaking of another person that crushed it that day, Tatum. So it was Tatum's second day with us. We also did have Mackenzie come out, who we've done multiple productions with as well too. But I think this is a good thing to just kind of mention. Again, we had the throat slit, which is probably going to be a DBS staple one. It was Tatum's first time doing it. We were a lot more confident with Mackenzie doing it. But I kind of just want to, talk about, it's always such a challenge to do special effects, because it is not only the effect itself, it is you filming the effect, and the effect could work perfectly and you just filmed it. So you saw a tube, so you did any of this stuff. So in the middle of the freezing, night that we're having there, we're trying to get this thing to work. We're figuring it out. Tatum's working hard, Mackenzie's working hard, Alessia is working hard, and we ended up pulling it off with that. So do you just want to quickly talk about how, again, special effects should be the middle bulk of your time? Because one of the worst things that could happen is you miss on a big effect.
Yeah, and I mean the thing with Tatum and the actual throat slit, that was her first time doing it, and we wanted to do it in pre-production, but we just didn't have time. And I know Mackenzie, and shout out to Mackenzie who came out. She's super busy with what she's doing at Halloween Horror Nights, so she came out to help us. But she knows how to do this effect. So I was like, all right, like we'll work with Mackenzie, and then Tatum can get a rep as far as like doing this in real time with us. But I mean, it's a partnership when you work with a special effects person. You can't just expect to come in there and have it done. You have to do pre-production with them. You have to know how to shoot it. I mean, it's just, that is how it is. Like there's going to be tubes, there's going to be stuff that's hidden. You have to figure out how to angle this stuff. And this was a little trickier because I'm shooting through a mirror where the character is supposed to be holding the camera. So I have to like kind of cheat it a little bit. Then I have to hide the prosthetics of the neck. So all of that stuff was just very, very difficult to do. But we got it done because we had multiple, like I knew this scene was going to take time. We had multiple angles. We had multiple cuts. We did it multiple times. And, I watched it. or I shot it, I watched it, I made sure it was good, and then we just moved on. But like if I were coming in to save this to the last day, it would have been, phoned in. It wouldn't have been any good. But we scheduled it, we gave it its whole day. Both special effects artists did a phenomenal job. And I think we got a really cool scene. But earlier in my film career, I probably would have saved this to the end and we would have rushed it and it would have been good. And we probably would have just not even had it work. It probably would have been cut because it just would have never been good or there would have been an issue with it. So, once again, it comes down to scheduling. It comes down to knowing, how to do this stuff. We did the throat slit and murder house, so I knew how long it was going to take. We did the eyeball effect and shapeshifter, so I knew how long it was going to take. And you just kind of keep that in mind, and just that's how you schedule people. But once again, that only comes with reps and experience. The only way you get experience is by uploading things and learning and making another movie.
Exactly that. So that's going to go ahead and kick off the first part of that day. It was a long night, and I think at this point we're basically in night mode, where usually we're trying to sleep, pretty early into during the day, so we can stay up later at night. But we had wrapped with the mirror scene, and then our next goal was basically getting what unfortunately happens to Bo. And I think the idea there was, trying to basically get, since Jim had a lot of emotionally draining scenes and stuff like that, we were looking at potentially wrapping people as quickly as we could. So the idea was that we'll move up any scene with Jim. That way I could bring Alessia and Jim back so they didn't have to freeze or kind of be out there. But this scene, I would say, was probably one of our challenging ones. And I think it highlights the issue with found footage, specifically with like more intense scenes. But basically, it was a standard knife stab scene, which came out perfectly in the shapeshifter. I mean, really, really awesome. But the issue is with shapeshifter, we were able to have cut-ins and be super close and everything there. Whereas the issue with this one is we were, had to make it one seamless thing. I would say, as the film gods like to be, we got one take that was really good, but the camera cord had an issue and it didn't record. Now, the other takes still work, but we had one take that worked like perfectly. So you want to talk about, again, how difficult that could be and just how getting through that scene was quite the process, because we were flipping around, we were going around here, and it was an intense scene. It required a lot of action from the actors. So to just kind of be there and like you're filming it and it's like, well, we can't use this take, we can't use this take, we can't use this take, and going through that process.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating with the actors too. We've done the stab scene multiple times before, but for this one, we just couldn't get it to look right. But I mean, this happens. Like it's, when we're doing cinematic, you have the ability to cut around. So I think that's kind of how we did it. I have to go look at how we did it in the shapeshifter, but like they were just struggling. The actors, when you're especially doing a fight scene, and it wasn't anything crazy, but like the actors still have to work together. It's almost like a dance. And the chemistry just wasn't there. Like they were just struggling. And it looked good because they were like on top of each other and it looked aggressive. But the blocking, the choreography to get this knife to actually go into this guy's chest just was not there. And we use a rubber knife, and we cut, like, you go through the hole. Like, we had cut like a little hole in the shirt, so it looks like the knife is going in. And it's dark, it's difficult to see, they're moving around, and you really have to get that point of the knife like in that hole in order to guide it. And it just, we weren't getting it done, so we try to block it with like his jacket, and it just wasn't happening. And then we did get one really, really good take, but we had this cord on the camera that was like spazzing out, and it was cutting the record button, or like it wouldn't like actually record. And this was happening all night. And it should have been something that I was aware of, but the one that we got that was really perfect, and I was all excited, and I looked down and it wasn't recording, was pretty brutal. But I think looking at the footage and it being found footage, we can chop it up a little bit. I think I have a way to actually do it where I can move all the way around. But I mean, this is what happens on set, man. Like, you think something's very easy, and even the stuff that we've done before, like we've done this scene before. So I was like, it shouldn't take very long. It should be pretty easy. I don't want the actors wrestling around for a long period of time because it is exhausting. They're on the ground. There's all kinds of like bugs and shit on the ground. So I don't want them doing this a lot. But I was like, in my head, this is 30 minutes tops. And we just kept going and going and going and going. And the actors started to get frustrated because they don't want to like be wrestling on the ground forever. But you have to get it, and you have to just keep pushing, and they're going to get frustrated. You just got to, be gentle and be like, all right, look, like we're almost there. It's looking good. Just give me a couple more. But it's just an example. Even if you've done it before, sometimes it just doesn't work out because there's so many variables to shooting. It's location, it's actors, it's blocking, it's how I'm actually shooting it. And this, I think, mistake that I made was, when we shot Shapeshifter, it was cinematic. So I would get facial reaction, wide, close up of the knife going in, and then we could just use the close ups, right? With this one, I had to get everything. It was oneers, constant oneers. And the problem with that is that, there is no cutaways. You have to get it all in one, and, it has to look good. It has to look realistic. And we just struggled. This was one of the harder scenes in there, but I think we have a way of cutting around it. And I do have a couple takes that look really good, but do I wish I had that one really good take that never was the take that never was? Yeah, I really do. But that is part of filmmaking. And I'll figure out a way to edit it together so it looks even better.
Yeah, I'm not worried in the slightest. So with that being said, we had those two scenes. That was when I made my way back, because at this point in time, I had to start getting caught up on the editing side of things. So again, my on-site role is really to be able to get the footage out there. We started to get a lot of footage that we're being able to put down. But the things that we had for that night, again, Isabella did an absolutely fantastic job on the mirror scene. Do you want to talk about quickly on the mirror scene? Because I think it's going to work really good. Every once in a while we say things like things are spooky, and like the mirror has really been able to step it up. So we like fire, we like mirrors. Why is that?
Yeah, so I remember when we were like brainstorming with this movie, number one, this one didn't have a ending. Like we did with most of our movies, we usually start with the end in mind. But I was like trying to figure out like what creepy things we could put in the woods. So I like made a list of all the creepiest things. Like if you were hiking in the woods and you came across this, like what would be the scariest thing to you? So I just started listing off a whole bunch of items, narrowed it down. And to me, I think the creepiest thing was you're walking through the woods and you just see this beautiful mirror and it looks pristine. It looks good. It's just in the middle of nowhere. We already know that mirrors are spooky from the murder house. We know mirrors sell very well because of the murder house. So I'm like, why not? That is how the witch kind of appears, is through this mirror. I was a little bit concerned about whether or not it would work. Just because, I'm not going to give away the ending, but there's some little camera trickery and some, cool stuff that we have in there. But I remember Dylan tested it out, and he's got like this creepy face that he does. And when he did it, I was like, oh, this is going to be money. Like, it's going to work so well. And it did. And we did a couple of variations. We have a silicone mask that we used for one of them. And then we had Isabella, who did a great job in the other variations. And I think we'll probably end up using Isabella. I thought, she had a good look to her. It was, creepy and unsettling. I was hesitant to use her as far as like, cause she looks very young. And I was like, the witch needs to be like a little bit older, but like the way that, we had her dressed with the veils, it was, like the black veils. I think it looks really creepy. So she did a great job. Shout out to her, to put all those dresses on, because I had a really great witch dress and Amazon lost it, like right before the shoot. So I ended up having to buy a whole bunch of stuff. So she had cloaks and she had dresses and all this stuff. And we just kind of piled it on her, to give her like a fluffy witch appearance. And she did a great job. So she had all this stuff on here, and I was like, hey, go out here in the middle of these bushes and just stand around and move around. Which, sounds easy, but it's really not. Like, to get like that the look of the witch, the slow movement, the methodical movement is kind of difficult. And I thought she did a really, really good job. She did a great job standing there in the mirror. It looked super creepy. And she was an overall blast to be on set. I really enjoyed her. She was absolutely great. Did everything that we needed to do. And is another thing with acting is that you never know when you're going to go on set. And so she had a long periods where she had to wait because we had special effects that we had to do before her. We had other scenes that we had to do before her. She was a trooper, never complained. And, I would not hesitate at all to bring her back.
Yeah, huge shout out again. Another just proving the Discord right in the sense of being able to do it. Also, I will say, obviously, the witch gets to keep her youth from stealing all of the children's souls. So that's an easy plot hole I can fix right there for you. After that, we had a scene that goes back to pre-production. Steven gets his pasta eyes, which is our loving title for that scene, but basically really good stuff. I mean, I think we can be very straightforward. This is why pre-production works. I mean, when we saw that clip, it's like, all right, this is a winner, and it was a winner. I'm sure it was an incredibly easy scene to pull off.
Yeah, I mean, we did the pre-production with Tatum, wanted to make sure it worked. So we did it with Shapeshifter, and then we had a little different this one, but I think it has enough punch, it has enough act, it's jarring, it looks creepy. And it's really easy scene. Like sometimes you just get some scenes that are really easy that have a really good ROI as far as like the amount of time and effort you put into them, and they turn out really well. And I think this one's going to shock a lot of people. I think it's going to be really cool. And I think it's going to be a great scene to really push us into the final like 5 or 6 minutes of this movie, because this is essentially all of Georgie's team is now getting unalived. So she will now begin her final girl sequence. And I think it's just a good kick. It hits, and she's off to the races while being chased by pretty much everything that we could possibly throw at her.
Yeah, and then we have Georgie delivering an excellent monologue similar to what we had with Girl in Cabin 13. And the last shot that we had of the night is DBS legend Aries stepping up, playing our Roger, and just bringing the heat. And again, this is someone where, he was thrilled to be on set. He was basically the last shot of the night. It was probably late 2, 3 in the morning and whatnot. And he shows up and he just crushes it.
Yeah, I mean, Howard, like, absolute star. He came in, he waited, he got all excited for his role. I had given him direction of being just like pent up, keep all your rage pent up, and then just kind of let it explode, because it's a very aggressive scene. He needs to come at me because I'm essentially holding a camera. I'm gonna fall on my back, and he has a rifle that he's gonna point at me. And we needed the intensity. We did this scene in the Shapeshifter, and I thought it worked really well, but we just didn't get that intensity that I wanted. So, we did a couple changes where I'm actually on my back. The gun is actually being pointed at me. And he's just, he needs to come out hot and just keep the intensity all the way through, which can be very difficult to do. So I was like messing with him the whole shoot. I was like, come on, man, just like, keep all this rage. You really want to hate me when you come out of these bushes, and really like put that gun as close to, the camera as you possibly can. And he did. He came out, did an absolute great job. After the first couple takes, I was like, listen, I got enough. We did a couple more. And, watching it and seeing the difference in our improvement from the shapeshifter to this one, we finally have like the intensity. So second time was the charm. Howard did a phenomenal job on this one. As always, I really appreciate him coming out. He helps out all the way through. But I mean, this is probably his best performance today. He did an absolutely phenomenal job. And he was the one when we went to the film festival. He was like, hey, like, I have some ideas for this character. And we gave him the role, and he brought his all. And I think that because it's earlier in the movie, and it's a large beat it needed to hit, and he came in and just did a phenomenal job. So Howard, I always appreciate you, man. We're going to cash you in all our stuff, but the level of detail you put into pre-production and the level of detail that you put into when we're actually shooting is always appreciated. And I always like when you hang out. It's always a good time, to be with you, and just the way you help out with everything is just absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, we're always going to bring you back, man.
Completely agree. Aries, you are a legend. So that's going to wrap up day 5. And again, that's the big stuff. We basically connected all of the dots here. Now we're just filling in a little bit of details. I will say at this point, I basically, was staying up the entire night to edit this and put this together. I believe at this night, I basically was like from 3 a.m. when I got back to like 11 a.m. I was like, all right, here we go. We had it all on the timeline. And from there, we were just really connecting the dots in the next one. There was one scene, though, which basically I had mentioned when they're doing this fight. I think we can do it one way that really makes it obvious. And that was really the only issue that I had. And typically for Shapeshifter, I have like an Excel sheet going, we needed this, 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 and this. And the only thing I really had was, hey, I think for this scene, we need to look at doing that. So that got added on to the next day. So, now we're on day 7. No, now we're on day 6. And the big thing for this day, for day 6, was it was a lot of the fillers, and then we had the one pickup of the torch. And we knew the torch one was going to be kind of intense because, again, it was a lot of emotion. It's tough on the actors to kind of pick up that intensity and kind of make it seamlessly connect. But overall, I think it's going to be worth it because it highlights and it shows that the witch is here. So I would say, how are you feeling in the sense that, to me, this is when we're really saying like, okay, let's hope, nothing bad happens, because we're just connecting dots, very basic scenes, pretty much all the drama's out of it. Like there's nothing heavy anymore, aside from the one pickup that we had to do.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Jim for doing that. I mean, this is just a director thing. Like, do not like, if you have to do pickups, if you have to reshoot something specifically, um, be upfront with the actors as quickly as possible and just try and get it done as quickly as possible. Because actors and the crew and everyone that you're trying to work with, they never want to redo something again. And we've done this a lot of times where we've had to redo things and it's never gone over well. It's just a difficult thing. When you do a scene as an actor and the director says, cut, we're done with this, we're moving on, unless there's some kind of catastrophic thing or you really mess up, you should be moving on. And the actors immediately in their head are like, all right, check this off. I'm done with this scene. I could, take where I am, because the actors have to get into, the character and they have to feel the scene. And once you say it's good, they're out of that and they're just not going to get back. They're like, look, I don't need to get back to this space again for this movie. And then like 2 days later, if you're like, hey, like we have to take you back to this spot. Well, especially in this movie, which is an extremely emotional movie and it requires a lot of emotional energy. It's a tough sell to be like, hey, like you got to come back here and you got to get back to this horrible place to do this scene again, even though I told you that we got it. So you really got to be careful as a director, like that you're getting everything you need to do. Going back and redoing something is just, nobody likes it, and it really can cause an issue with morale. Thank God we had Jim though, who was a trooper. He's like, yeah, sure, totally, I'll get it. We did it in multiple takes. I'm like, all right, you sure? Like, you're good? He's like, I could give you as many as you need to do. There was no problem with it. And I think that's a testament to, the set was, everyone really vibed together. There's good vibes only on this set. But I mean, shout out to him where he just came in there and like, there wasn't any kind of issue. He's like, whatever you need, I'm here to give it to you. I'll give you the performance that you want. And, came in there and killed it. And I think that those pickups are going to make the movie just flow a lot better. It's in a crucial scene near the climax of the movie. So for him to just go back to that really deep, dark place, I appreciate that. And, it's a very difficult ask, but just for any directors out there who are listening to this, do not go back and reshoot stuff only unless it's an emergency. If you're going to stay in the moment and you have to take extra shots just to make sure you got it, to make sure 100% you got it, it's better to do extra takes than to have to stop and then go back, later on the shoot.
Yeah, that's a huge one. You got to make sure you get it, because going back and redoing it is always such a painful process. I mean, especially for that scene, there's a lot going into it. We had to get the torches going, but not only did Jim provide a great performance, we actually added a few more things and kind of the dialogue and the discussion to really clarify the lore and what was going on. So I think overall, it's just such a huge improvement. And at this point in time, I basically have a finished movie ready to go. We have like the whole timeline, we're running through it, and the thing just looks amazing. There really wasn't, I think we had like a few, I had like one or two like, hey, your transitions here could be better, but like other than that, I mean, that's the beauty of found footage. Like, you're ready to go. So we're done with this night. After we had the pickup, but we then had to do a lot of the connector stuff. So Georgie and her tent, they're basically out there the first night, and this is how you want to be set up. These are all very lower down beats. There's a little bit of tension between Bo and Nelson here and there, but for the most part, we're cruising. So you want to talk about the feeling of just basically being downhill and just enjoying the ride for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, it's this is how you want to do it, because these are all transition scenes, are very small scenes. And, as I'm shooting this, I could crank out a ton of these. Like, so my job is just keep this momentum going, get the actors where they need to go and push them as far as you can. And there's no large emotional scenes, so they don't need to break down. They don't need to take like 20 minutes to like recover from the scenes. We just crank through all these things, and that just creates a really fun environment. We're doing a ton of work. They're crossing off all these scenes on our shot list. It's everything's upbeat, and this is where you really want to go. This was a great day. All the stuff was super easy. People were bonding, that we were getting close, as just friends on this shoot. And the last couple days were great. Like, this is how you want to do it. And if this was a shoot earlier in my career, I would have saved the hardest stuff, the special effects, the climax to the end. And I'd be sweating right now. I'd be like, oh man, I don't know if we're going to get a movie. I start to be cutting scenes. I'd be in an emotional wreck, early in my career. And then now we're having fun. We're moving extremely fast. We're getting everything we need. We're giving everything the time it deserves. So if we need extra transitions, or if some people are thinking about extra lines or stuff that we can add in there, just give it a little bit more spice, I'm open ears. And, we shot a ton of stuff on this day, because I really wanted to make sure that the final day, we dedicated to the Discord interviewers, because I never really knew how those would go. They're pretty long. Like, each person would have about 5 pages of dialogue, and we had a lot of them. I think we had 7 interviewers. And I would just want to make sure that they had time to feel comfortable, because a lot of them, it was their first time on set. And then I wanted to give, the main actors a break, like a day, and just be like, listen, we'll do the interview stuff in the day, we'll do pickups at night, and we'll do any kind of small stuff after that and do the wrap party. And in order to do that, I had to push them pretty hard this day, but because it was very easy stuff, I pushed them. There was no push back, and we were able to just get all these little small scenes done. I think we even had a couple pickups in there. But once this day was done, it was pretty much over. Like, we had pretty much got this thing where it needed to go.
Yep, that's gonna move us right into our day 7. So really, the day 7, it was just the connector dots from kind of getting things together. We also were kind of in the process of getting, we were in the process of getting things cleaned up. This was like the last night that we basically were like, hey, we're done with the location. But really, it was the gang gets a VHS tape and we film them watching it. This is one that you kind of mentioned to in the beginning. This is like super simple, super easy. And God, this one took like what, 4 hours between all of it, when it really could have been done. Like, if you would ask us, like 45 minutes, just because we're trying to get stuff set up. It didn't work. My computer, Richelga, liked to have a USB issue at like the perfect timing. So all of these things kind of just added up to just being little minor things that just takes forever to get a shot done. These are very basic shots.
Yeah, I think I mean, the one thing I think a lot of people don't understand is like the mental toll this will take on you, especially if you're not used to it. And me and Kella are used to doing this for a while, because we've shot 12 of these. We both work very hard on our day jobs, and we have the ability to not break, so like we can push through a lot of stuff. So we sort of have that muscle of just like mental integrity. And I think for a lot of other directors, I think that they just don't understand the mental toll that these movies take on you. You're constantly making a ton of decisions for 16 to 18 hours a day, that require a lot of brain power. It's almost like taking an 18-hour final for 8 days in a row. You like, your brain starts to break down. It starts to feel like numb. And this is just a great example of that. I spent probably an hour and a half editing this footage to put on this TV so that we could shoot it through the TV. And it turns out I don't even need to do that because I can't even get a shot of the TV because it's a found footage movie. And the only thing I can really get is the reactions. And I have to play the VHS tape, later on, when I actually edit it. So that was like 2 hours of wasted. And I spent the whole time, editing this stuff. And then I went to go, like, we spent a whole bunch of time trying to find USB cables to plug it in. I got the camera and I'm like, there's no other angle. Like, I could either get the TV or I could get the reaction. I can't get both. And obviously you want the reaction of them reacting to the TV, but this was like a 2-hour brain fart. And it's just because my mental ability had a lapse. And, thank God it was a very easy scene that we didn't really have to do it. But like, I could see this happening to other directors on set. I've seen it happen to other directors on set. I think you really have to make sure that you're completely focused at all times and the decisions that you're making are the correct ones. And a lot of that comes to pre-production. As I'm breaking down a script, I am figuring out how I am going to shoot these things in my head, and I'll make notes on my paper. So I already know going into a scene how I'm going to shoot it. This one just slipped my mind. I don't know what I was doing, why I was thinking it. It's like, I even had notes on there. It was like, get their reactions. And I just, for whatever reason, didn't listen to myself and spent 2 hours editing something that didn't need to be edited. The good news is if Kel still has that project file, I can just pop it in to the actual timeline and we're good to go. So it really wasn't like that bad of a deal. But I mean, like, you really have to watch your mental fatigue on these shoots. And we shoot for 8 days, they're aggressive, but I mean, if you're shooting longer, if you're doing 15 21-day shoots, I can only imagine at some point like how difficult it can be because you're answering questions for 18 hours a day, you're making a ton of decisions, and if you don't have that mental integrity to be able to hold up, you're gonna struggle a little bit. And then when you start to struggle, you're gonna make poor decisions, and then poor decisions are gonna make a poor product. So I think the way to overcome that is just make sure your pre-production, your notes and your script, when you're breaking down all this stuff without this mental stress, so you can quickly reference it on set, so you don't have to make these stupid decisions like I did.
And I think it's a good thing that you brought up, how we're used to it, because the whole time we are kind of joking about it, because it's like, of course, this scene, and it really is something where, like, we've had movies where every single scene was that over and over and over and over again. And like, yeah, if you're not ready for this mentally, and I'm pretty sure, like, I feel like anytime we hear anyone doing like logs, which if you're an indie filmmaker, please do logs. We'll listen to them 100%. Like, we absolutely love that. Please do it. But yeah, I mean, like, you can feel it. It's palpable with like I think people don't understand how much of a mental and physical thing it is. I've done a lot of physical stuff or like, long triathlons and things like that. And you do a lot of mentally hard stuff, but very rarely do you do it both at the same time for like 8 days straight. It's a really crazy thing if you haven't experienced it. And this is one of the examples where, like, this was the easiest scene this could happen. Now, because we have so much tools in our tool chest, we don't, we have a lot of scenes that we've done before, but when you're first starting out, you're literally, your entire film set could be like what we were doing for that one scene. So that brings us to our very last day. And for me, this was one of my favorite days because we had our super fan interviewers. We had so many amazing people. We had Sabrina, we had Tatum. She did hers a little earlier, but we had Tatum basically be an interviewer. We had McKee, we had Gabs, we had Sammy, and we had Erica, all DBS Discord members that basically auditioned, got into these roles. They're basically providing the lore. The only bad one was me. Other than that, they did an absolutely fantastic job. And it's really something where it's a critical scene. This really is going to be what sets the pace. It's going to be what sets the tone for the lore. And it's going to be something where, I think it just shows, as a film studio, we're always going to be working in these different ways that we can get as many people involved as possible. And, again, they did a fantastic job. It really shows and shines when it's like, wow, you're really great on set. This was great to work with you. And typically when that happens, we end up bringing you back in some capacity. So you want to talk about the interviewer day?
Yeah, I wasn't really worried about the interviewer day. And every single one did better than I expected. They did it so quickly and so efficiently. The only issue we had is because you're shooting during the day, and you never really want to shoot during the day, but just because of how we had to schedule these things, we had like cloud cover and then we had no cloud cover. So we were really just waiting on the sun to hit certain marks. And that was the only slowdown. It wasn't anything to do with the actors. They did such a phenomenal job. And they kept coming up to me and being like, I'm so sorry for taking so long, and like not knowing all the lines and stuff like that. And it just shows you like you don't understand. Like I allocated so many hours, like each one probably got 2 or 3 hours on the shot schedule. And I think the longest one took 45 minutes. So they were doing such a great job, but you just really don't realize how long film takes. And I think that's like a thing that a lot of people, if you've never been on set before, to do like one or two, like on a Hollywood set, they probably get 2 of these interviews done in one day. And we were able to do all 7 of them in 6 hours, maybe 5 hours. Um, so there's no need to apologize. Everyone did it in pretty much half the time that I thought they would. So it was just super quick, super efficient. They all knew their lines. They did a great performance. And I think, they'll all be very proud of the final product. It was, a really cool way to tell the lore of the area, to show a little bit of the citizens of the area, the people who live in these woods, the grief and the mystery of like what's happening with these children. And I think we did a really good job with this. The one things that that we had was just like that sun was moving in and out of clouds, so it was like very difficult for me to change the settings constantly. The Black Magic camera that we shoot on is a very good low light camera, but like if you shoot from like 9 a.m. up until like 6, like it's you're gonna be fighting, you're gonna be struggling. It's really hard. It's just too bright outside. So it's really a golden hour and night camera. And you really want to be able to control the light. And then also like the road, so like we're out in the middle of the woods, right? But there's like one main like highway thing, and it was just so loud. Like I was trying to find all these cool spots, like these tractors and abandoned stuff. I know we're doing some guerrilla filmmaking out there. And that road was just so loud. Every time we start rolling, these huge trucks would come through, or people were just blasting music and all this stuff. So really that was the only other main issue. Other than that, the interview people, everyone who was there did an absolute phenomenal job. I have no hesitation in bringing you back in anything. And it's a good way, to just get you guys on set, get your feet wet, get comfortable, and then we can start to increase your roles and give you other roles moving on. I mean, just to give an example, Brent was in Girl in Cabin 13, just took his mask off. Then he played Officer Reynolds, the one who actually killed Mo in the beginning of the murder house. And this one, he has almost a 5-minute monologue. And that's like the trajectory that I want to, get all our actors, especially the ones from Discord, is just bring them in something easy to get comfortable, to show that like what we're all about here, and then just slowly build them up. And so everyone grows together and we just get better together is like the whole, philosophy of what we're trying to do with the Discord and with the actors that we bring on set.
Yeah, really cool day. Really, really great way to end the shoot. And this was actually the first one where we had a wrap party, which is a DBS milestone. Do you want to kind of talk about how every other time we're basically rushing out of the Airbnb, having lack of sleep? And I think, again, it comes back to what we said at the very beginning of this, where a schedule is going to be your biggest asset as a filmmaker.
Yeah, it was nice. Obviously you want to just really try and make sure you make the most of your shooting schedule. So like the Shapeshifter, in Murder House, where we were shooting all the way until, we got kicked out of the location. There's a benefit to that. Like you're paying for this, you're paying for the actor's time, you're paying for all this equipment and everything. Make sure you get the most of it. With this one, I was just so confident that we got everything that we needed. We were able to have a wrap party, and it allowed me to really ask the actors, I wanted feedback on, my performance, on the production, anything I could do better. And here's just a testament to pre-production, right? I did so much pre-production on this one. We had 4 or 5 touches with all the main actors. We did reads between myself and the actors. We did a giant group read or like meet and greet kind of thing. And I said, like, what would you guys, what feedback could you give me to make a better production? And I did all this pre-production, all these hours of pre-production with them. And they all said, we wanted more pre-production. So if you're a director out there and you're like worried about bothering your actors for doing pre-production, that's not a thing. I was concerned that I was doing too much pre-production, that I was like wasting their time, or they were committing too much time to this production. And it was unanimous feedback that the actors wanted even more pre-production. They wanted me one-on-one breakdowns, they wanted group breakdowns, they wanted more stuff. So if you're ever out there worried about pre-production and just doing too much pre-production, it doesn't exist. There is never enough pre-production. The actors want it, the crew wants it, and myself as a director, the more pre-production you can do, the better it can get. And I think this one, which is by far our best feature film, had by far the most pre-production we've ever done. And moving into the next one, I'm going to try and even do more pre-production. And it's good now that I know that, like, I guess it's unlimited. So I'm going to try and push that as much as I can, do as much pre-production as possible. Because I think everyone, especially with this cast, this crew, they saw how special this script was, and they wanted to make a really good product. And I think we did, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. So if you're out there as a director and you're worried about pushing your actors too far as like pre-production, the feedback on this one is just do even more pre-production.
Yeah, and there you go. There is proof of a schedule working well. That was our smoothest shoot by far. It was our best product by far. I'm going to go ahead and call that. It's pretty easy how much we improve each time. And we're excited for you guys to see it. And on top of that, it's going to be a very quick turnaround. No pickups, no nothing. I love it. Music to my ears. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode. But again, be sure to take a look at us online. Follow our Discord. You could be in the movies just like our amazing cast from this film. And that's where you're going to stay tuned to everything DBS. But until then, have a good one.